There are moments in life when everything you believed in shatters in a single breath. When the person you trusted most becomes a stranger in an instant. When love reveals itself to be nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. This is the story of a woman who stood at that edge, stared into the abyss of betrayal, and chose something most people never find the courage to choose: herself. Her name was Kyoma, 28 years old, 7 months pregnant, glowing with the kind of beauty that comes from within. She had waited years for love that felt real, safe, dependable. She thought she'd found it. She was wrong. But what she discovered on the eve of her wedding, and what she did about it the next day, would become a moment that thousands of women would never forget. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about power reclaimed. It's about a woman who walked into her own wedding and turned betrayal into liberation. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The day before the wedding, the house pulsed with life. Relatives moved through rooms like currents, voices layering over one another in joyful chaos. The scent of fried chicken drifted from the backyard. Laughter spilled from every corner. Tomorrow was supposed to be the beginning of everything Kyoma had dreamed of. A life built on love, partnership, and trust. Her fiancé, Abuka, was everything people admired. Articulate, ambitious, the kind of man who made promises sound like poetry. He held her hand during her worst pregnancy symptoms, whispered reassurances when fear crept in, and spoke about their future with a certainty that made her believe in forever. She carried his child beneath her heart, and she carried hope in every step she took. But beneath the surface of perfection, something was rotting, something she hadn't yet seen, something that would reveal itself in the cruelest way possible, not through confession, but through carelessness, through arrogance, through the kind of betrayal that doesn't just break trust, it obliterates it. And it would all begin with a simple suggestion from her cousin Linda. Linda had always been the bold one, the cousin who never knocked before entering, who spoke before thinking, who lived as if boundaries were suggestions rather than rules. That evening, she sat on the edge of Kyoma's bed, chewing gum with that signature grin that could charm or deceive depending on the day. "You're really just going to sit here until morning?" Linda asked, her tone playful but pointed. No surprise visit? No romantic gesture before the big day? Kyoma looked up from rubbing her swollen belly. "What kind of gesture?" Linda leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He's staying at the Mirari Hotel tonight. You should deliver his wedding gift yourself. Show up. Surprise him. Trust me, it'll mean everything." Kyoma hesitated. Her feet ached. Her body was exhausted. But Linda's words tugged at something deeper, the desire to make one last memory before their lives changed forever. After a moment, she stood. "All right, but I won't stay long." Linda's smile widened. "Good girl." The Mirari Hotel stood quiet against the evening sky, its yellow lights casting warm shadows across the entrance. Kyoma stepped out of the car, holding a small paper bag containing a gold wristwatch and a handwritten letter. She moved slowly, one hand beneath her belly, the other clutching the gift. At the reception desk, she asked for her fiancé's room. The woman behind the counter typed briefly, then looked up with a polite smile. "He checked in this evening, but he's not alone. His instructions were no interruptions." The words landed like stones. "He's not alone." "Yes, he came in with a woman." Kyoma's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the bag. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely steady. She walked toward the elevator, each step heavier than the last. The shiny doors reflected her face back at her, wide eyes, tight lips, a woman on the verge of discovering something she couldn't unsee. The elevator climbed. 7th floor. The hallway stretched before her, silent and cold. Room 712. She stopped outside the door. Voices filtered through, muffled at first, then clearer. Laughter, then sounds that pierced through her chest like glass. She pressed her ear closer, and that's when she heard his voice. Abuka's voice. Clear, calm, cruel. Kyoma's too emotional these days. Always talking about our future. "Honestly, I'm only going through with this because of the baby. If she wasn't pregnant, I'd be long gone. A woman giggled. You're terrible. She thinks this is love, he continued, his tone dripping with arrogance. But once we're married, I'll control everything. She's nothing without that baby. More laughter, more sounds, more betrayal. If you're still watching, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us keep bringing you powerful stories every week. Kilma stood frozen. Her hand trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She opened a voice recorder, pressed record, and held it steady near the door. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stood there, silent as stone, capturing every word, every sound, every piece of evidence she would need. 6 minutes passed. When she finally stopped recording, she backed away slowly, almost ghost-like. She walked to the elevator, her hand resting protectively over her belly. Not with joy this time, with resolve, with a promise whispered only to herself and her unborn child. I will protect you, no matter what. In the car ride home, her face remained pale but composed. She stopped at a pharmacy, bought a memory card, copied the recording, and backed it up to her email. Then she sat in silence, staring out the window, and whispered words that would echo through everything that followed. I am not the fool you think I am, Abuka. Tomorrow I'll show you. That night, Kilma didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the recording replaying in her mind. There was no confusion, no second-guessing, just clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. She had heard the truth. Now she had to decide what to do with it. By dawn, her plan was set. She picked up her phone and made 2 calls. The first was to her godfather, a powerful investor in Abuka's business. Uncle, I need you to pull your investment. Today. Before the wedding. His voice hesitated, then softened. I'll take care of it. The second call was to her lawyer. Cancel the marriage license. I want it withdrawn from the registry. Make sure it's not valid. The lawyer paused. Are you sure, Kilma? Her voice didn't waver. I've never been more sure. By the time the sun rose fully, the trap was set. The wedding would go on, but the marriage never would. The church stood tall and beautiful, ribbons tied to every window, flowers adorning the altar. Guests filled the pews, cameras flashed, and the air hummed with anticipation. Abuka stood at the front in his pristine white suit, smiling like a man who had won. Linda sat in the front row, grinning, her secret tucked safely behind her lipstick and lace. Then the music began. The doors opened, and Kilma appeared. She walked down the aisle slowly, her white gown flowing like water, her face serene but unreadable. Guests stood, gasping at her beauty. Abuka's smile widened. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. The ceremony began. Vows were spoken. Abuka delivered his with confidence, his voice smooth and practiced. I promise to love you, protect you, and be your partner in everything. The crowd clapped. Some wiped their eyes. Then it was Kilma's turn. She took the microphone, but instead of speaking, she reached into her bouquet and pressed a small button. The church's sound system crackled. Then, loud and clear, a voice filled the room. Kilma's too emotional. I'm only marrying her because of the baby. If she wasn't pregnant, I'd be out. Gasps erupted. People looked around in confusion. Then the recording continued. The laughter, the woman's voice, the sounds that left no room for doubt. Abuka's face turned white. He reached for the microphone, but the pastor held him back. Kilma stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting through the chaos like a blade. This, she said, was recorded last night at the Marari Hotel, room 712. While I was home preparing for this day, my groom was with another woman, laughing about me, planning to control me. The church exploded. Phones came out. Women screamed. Abuka tried to speak, but no words came. Kilma turned to face the crowd, her voice steady and strong. And for those wondering who the other woman is, she pointed directly at Linda. My cousin, my bridesmaid, the woman he spent the night with. Linda's face drained of color. She tried to stand, to run, but people blocked her path. The church descended into chaos. Abuka stood frozen, his mouth open, his life unraveling in real time. Kilma removed her engagement ring and dropped it on the floor. I came here today prepared to marry a man I thought loved me. Instead, I discovered the truth just in time. I won't cry. I won't beg. I will walk out of here with my dignity intact. She turned and walked down the aisle. Slowly, deliberately, and as she moved, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the guests stood. They clapped. They cheered. Some cried. The choir began to sing, not a wedding song, but something else. Something that sounded like freedom. Kilma walked out the church doors into the sunlight, her head high, her baby safe, her spirit unbroken. The aftermath was swift. Abuka's business collapsed within days. His investors pulled out. His clients disappeared. His reputation turned to ash. Linda became an outcast, shunned by family and friends alike. The hotel recording went viral, shared across continents, becoming a symbol of what happens when deceit meets its reckoning. But Kilma, she didn't focus on their downfall. She focused on her rise. She launched a blog called The Bride Who Walked, a space where women shared stories of betrayal, survival, and strength. It grew rapidly, drawing thousands of followers who saw themselves in her story. Messages poured in daily, women thanking her for giving them courage, for showing them that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. 2 months later, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Amarachi, God's grace, because that's exactly what she was. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, grace finds a way. Kilma didn't become famous for revenge. She became known for something far more powerful, choosing herself. She spoke at conferences, sat with broken women in small rooms, and listened as they told stories that mirrored her own. She didn't preach. She simply shared. And in sharing, she healed. Not just herself, but countless others. One evening, months after the wedding that never was, Abuka appeared at her gate. He carried nothing. No flowers. No apologies that would matter. The gateman turned him away. Kilma watched from inside, and for the first time, she felt nothing toward him. Not anger. Not pain. Just peace. She had walked away from a life built on lies. And in doing so, she had walked into a life built on truth. There's a lesson woven into Kilma's story that goes beyond weddings and betrayal. It's about the moment when you realize that staying costs more than leaving. When you understand that dignity isn't found in enduring pain, but in refusing to accept it. Kilma didn't destroy Abuka. She simply revealed him. And in that revelation, she freed herself. Today, Kilma's foundation helps women who find themselves trapped in situations where love has become manipulation, where promises have turned into prisons. She doesn't call herself a hero. She calls herself a survivor who learned that the strongest vow you can make isn't to someone else. It's to yourself. Her daughter, Amarachi, is growing up surrounded by women who know what it means to rise. And one day, when she's old enough to understand, Kilma will tell her the story of the wedding that never happened. She'll tell her how her mother wore a white dress, stood at an altar, and chose freedom over a lie. Because that's what real love looks like. Not staying, but in the knowing when to walk. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments what part spoke to you the most. And if you thought this one was powerful, wait till you hear the next story we're working on.